Hello, today we are discussing Sigmund Freud and his view on the sentiment of being religious. I have a unique perspective on this because I grew up Protestant in a progressive church in Switzerland and I've been thinking about the topic for many years. But let's get into it. Sigmund Freud opened his book Civilization and Its Discontents by discussing an idea brought by one of his great friends. And this friend is telling him about this sentiment, this feeling of being religious. And he says it's an oceanic feeling, a feeling of eternity, a feeling of being part of the whole world. And I've actually felt that feeling, which is why I can relate, but Sigmund Freud hasn't. So in his book, he's very confused and he decides that if he cannot feel the feeling himself, he's going to do a psychoanalytic analysis of it. So he goes back to his main theories. And his theory is that we have a sense of self, an ego. And with this sense of self, we can tell apart what is our self and under our control from the rest of the external world. And normal adults can tell these distinctions very well. But as a baby, you don't. When you are born, everything is this big muddle of things that you don't really understand. And as you grow up, through experience, you get to find out what is yours, what belongs to yourself, and what belongs to the external world. And one of Sigmund Freud's great findings in his thought that we owe to him is the realization that some people have a disorder or a mental illness and cannot tell apart what is part of themselves and under their control from what is the external world. That's the case, for example, for a narcissist who feels like everything belongs to him and should be controlled by him. So Sigmund Freud goes to his psychoanalytic analysis and says, well, if my great friend and many people have this religious feeling of being part of a whole thing, of the whole universe, it means that they did not build this sense of self as a child the way they should have been. But here's why I disagree with him. If you feel like the whole world is part of yourself, you become very arrogant and controlling. You want to have control over it because it's you. And this feeling of religiosity is the inverse. You feel like you are just this tiny little thing in this entire whole world, in these huge institutions that are going to live well beyond your death. So it's a feeling of humility, of being just one tiny piece. Whereas if the whole world is you, you would feel very powerful and arrogant, like a dictator. So the analysis of Freud is very interesting, but it's kind of going in reverse. What his friend is telling him is this sense of humility, of being nothing in the whole world, and the peace that it brings, and also the will that it brings to participate in society. Because, for example, you and me, we are just one tiny person, and our countries are going to live longer as us. Our religion, whichever career path or institution we work for, is going to live beyond us. So we only get to contribute a little bit, positive or negative, to things that are happening around us. And that's why Freud was probably too arrogant for his own good, because he felt of himself as being a grown-up adult who mastered everything. And so necessarily, if people were experiencing a feeling he wasn't, it had to be inferior to himself. And if it's inferior, it's necessarily the state of being a child or maybe of being a woman, where your moral system is not as developed and yourself is not as developed as it would otherwise. I would love to have your opinion on your topic. If you want to help me, please like the video just to show me that you like the subject, and I thank you so much for watching.